Let's get to our big story now on the lingering impacts of last year's devastating wildfires a year ago this week. It's hard to think about. Survivors were being let back into their neighborhoods for the first time to see the destruction left behind. Of course, the fires didn't just take people's homes, they also took lives. 11 people died across the state. Well, now the families of 4 of those victims are suing power companies and government agencies, claiming they need to be held responsible for the deaths of their loved ones. 2 of the victims were 13-year-old Wyatt Tofty and his grandmother, Peggy Mosso. They are part, in case you remember, of that family that owns the Enchanted Forest. They both died near their home on North Fork Road in Lyons while trying to escape from the fire in the Santiam Canyon. The other 2 victims are Kathy Cook and her son Justin Cook. They also lived on North Fork Road in Lyons, and they died in that fire. The lawsuits claim Pacific Power and Consumers Power Incorporated failed to turn off their power lines despite high wind and fire danger warnings from forecasters. They also claim those power lines caused 13 spot fires in the canyon, which joined together with other wildfires in the area. And finally, the lawsuit also mentions that Portland General Electric did make the decision to turn off their power lines near Mount Hood after seeing those same fire danger warnings. The families are also suing Marion County, Metcom 911, and the State and Fire District, claiming they waited too long to tell people to evacuate. They say by the time evacuation notices were posted on Facebook, North Fork Road had already lost power. And emergency alerts weren't sent out to cell phones, they say, until hours later, when it was already too late. We reached out to all the defendants named in that lawsuit. Of the ones we've heard back from, none of them want to comment at this time. And we should mention, and we've talked about it on this show before, this is not the first lawsuit stemming from this wildfire. Pacific Power is also facing a class action lawsuit accused of, again, failing to turn off their power lines in the Santiam Canyon. That was filed last year, and it's still making its way through the court system. In fact, a trial has been scheduled for 2022 if a settlement doesn't happen first. And for reference, this is not unheard of. Okay, we've actually seen very similar cases to this play out in California. Remember the Camp Fire in 2018? It was the deadliest and it was the most destructive fire in the state's history. It leveled the town of Paradise. Well, the utility company PG&E, different from PGE here in Oregon, filed for bankruptcy. They were sued so many times. Their equipment was blamed for starting that fire and others in the state.